I'm Amy, thank you for tuning in. Today I've got a very special guest because Marisa Noelle is not only a brilliant author, but she is also the mentor from Write Mentor, who came in right at the start of my publication journey. So I think I've got a lot to owe to Marisa in terms of getting my book published, because just to give you a bit of background, I got on Write Mentor in 2018, and within a few months I had an agent, and within a year of doing it I had my book deal. So Marisa is extremely knowledgeable about publishing and writing, and she's also an author in her own right. So she's written amazing books like the Unadjusted trilogy, the Mermaid Chronicles, Shadow Keepers, I get that right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's so many right. I've got so many titles bouncing around my head. I really enjoyed that one. And you've got a new book that you're going to tell us something about as well. So welcome, Marisa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And would you like to start by telling us a little bit more about your books and about your upcoming book as well?
Yeah. So I write young adult, and I would say within the speculative area. So it's dystopian, some of it's psychological horror, and I've got fantasy romance, so anything in that speculative thing. But they all have elements of mental health to one degree or another, because that's a really important thing. And yeah, my new book coming out is called The Unraveling of Luna Forrester, and that's due out in December. And that is another psychological horror with some really twisty twists that I'm so excited about sharing with the world. I wrote it quite a while ago, and I had a lot of positivity around it, and now it's coming. So yay!
And so exciting. And I love the fact that although your books are quite distinct, they all have that thread of mental health and speculative elements. I think it's really good, isn't it, to have an author brand and to have kind of thought about the type of author you want to be. So can you tell us a little bit? We're going to talk quite a lot about self-publishing, because that's something I'm fascinated about and know very, very little about. But can we start by telling us a little bit about your publication journey from your debut to present day?
Yes, we can. It's very long and strange and bumpy. So at the moment, I'm out on my third agent and hopefully my last, and I do think I finally found the right fit. And I think back when I was, much more of a novice, I was like, yeah, agent, that's done. It didn't occur to me that you needed to find the right fit, or even if, you didn't find the right fit, how could you turn down an offer? I didn't really understand those warnings that more experienced authors would say. So I found myself in kind of like the wrong relationship for two very different reasons with my first two agents. And then during the time I'd got myself on Twitter and I was building a following, but actually I was more interested in the support network on Twitter with other authors and making those connections. And then I really started to learn more about not just the craft of writing, but the industry itself as well. And I came across the pitching parties, like, mad pitch wars, what is it? Or not pitch wars, I've forgotten what they are now.
Yeah, there's pitch wars, there's pit mad, there's all sorts of ones.
Yeah. So I had got a like from a small publisher for the Unadjusted when I did that, and I was between agents at the time. And then when they read it and they said, actually, yes, we want to take this on, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go back and email all the agents. And this was when I was going with my second agent. And so she signed me. We actually tried to send things out to bigger publishers again, but, Hunger Games had been, and people just weren't buying dystopian. So we ended up going back to the small press, and it was a startup press, and me and another author were the first two books to be released. And I've got to say, working with this one was a fantastic experience. Hallie is a freelance editor by trade, and she really pushed me, made me so much better. I learned so much by working with her. At a similar time, another small press had picked up the Shadow Keepers, and so that they were kind of being worked on at the same time and being put out together. And it was the Shadow Keepers that came out first. And then everything kind of went wrong because I split with my agent. And then Hallie decided she wasn't going to do any more books. So book 2 and book 3 for the Unadjusted was just like, nothing's going to happen. And then the publisher who had taken the Shadow Keepers ended up collapsing for lots of very odd reasons. And then I was kind of thinking, this is ridiculous. And the whole reason I had gone with small presses was because I didn't know enough about self-publishing at the time. I felt like that was too much for me to bite off. So I thought, at least I've got the comfort as somebody who knows what they're doing and putting the book out there. but I was actually really disappointed with the lack of marketing and things like that. So I thought, well, now that I've been through this process with these 2 books and I can see how they've done it, I can actually do this. So I self-published The Shadow Keepers, and I actually went and did another edit on it because I felt like they didn't push me hard enough during my round of edits with them. So what's out now is different. And then with the Unadjusted, I eventually got my rights back and self-published that, and also self-published book 2 and book 3 in the trilogy. Now my Mermaid series is with another publisher, and again, my contract with them is a bit longer, so I can't say too much. But I do want to self-publish the rest of the series. I'd like to have that under my control rather than somewhere else. And I think the thing is, even though I had now secured my 3rd agent by now, you know, they don't take things out so much that have been self-published or with small presses, unless you've got masses and masses of sales, because, you know, it's kind of been and done, or unless they love the concept. So yeah, I have an agent, and we now have been on sub for a while with a middle grade book, and we're about to send out another young adult book, but equally things that she doesn't like, or not that she doesn't like them, but that they're not right for her, which don't really have to explain that, but she's happy for me to self-publish. So I've come to be a little bit of a hybrid author, where I have these small press and self-published titles under me. I'm also pursuing the traditional route, and I quite like both. And I think, had I still been waiting for a traditional book deal, I wouldn't be published at the moment. And for me, who I've been writing for years and years and years, I thought I need to get something out there. I want to just ease that dream that got more intense year by year. I needed to get stuff out there, so I can happily manage all my self-published books while my agent carries on with the traditional route, and we'll see what happens. So that is it in not a very small nutshell.
Well, thank you for being so open, because I think what I've heard online is a lot of people say that the publishing process is so mystified and shrouded in secrecy, and even for authors who are being published, sometimes there's things that we just don't understand and we have to ask our author friends about. So it's really good to hear you say that, and to hear you say that there are pros and cons of each route, and we'll delve into that a little bit later. So I'm wondering, I hear the term self-published a lot, and I know that means that you don't have a publisher and you have published the book yourself. But what I have no idea is, so you've drafted the book and you've got it as polished as it can be. What happens then? How does that book go from you've written it to you have published it?
Yeah, so, you know, different authors have different approaches. I still use editors, and if I don't use an editor, I use a critique partner or 5 that I trust and know can really drill into my writing. So I still do that. There are lots of self-published authors who don't bother or who don't hire an editor. It is expensive, so not everybody can afford to do that. So, you know, sometimes I rely on critique partners to do that. But there are ways to get your work edited without, you know, without it costing an arm and a leg. And for me and my philosophy, I think it's really important, because, you know, you get too close to your work and you need to give rest time, and you need to be able to look at it objectively and listen to other people's points of view. And I think this is why self-publishing has a very mixed reputation, because there are people that just write something, stick it on Amazon, and it's not great quality, or the grammar's not great. Whereas there are other authors that I would include myself in who spend the time editing and making sure that's all right. So for the actual practicalities of what you do, there are 2 different ways that you can go about actually getting your book out there. You can be Amazon only, and that is, then you're on a system called KDP, and also Kindle Unlimited, you can be within that. So with the way Kindle Unlimited works is that people can, it's like Audible, where people pay a subscription to Amazon every month, and then they can read as much as they want, as long as the book is enrolled in Kindle Unlimited, and you get paid for page reads. And it's only like 0.004 cents per page, but it all builds up, especially if you get you know, known within the Kindle Unlimited world. But you could only do Kindle Unlimited if you're on Amazon only. Now, if you want to go wide, is what we call the expression. This is where you can publish on Google Play, on Apple and Nook and all these other platforms. Your cover will need to be formatted differently for each one of these, and potentially your manuscript as well. So to get the book up there, you do need to get a cover, and that's a place where you do need to spend some money, unless you are good at designing and you've got Photoshop and you can create that kind of thing. I think this is one of the areas where sometimes self-publishing books can let themselves down, where you can see it's something someone's mocked up and it's not representative of books that you would walk in and see in a bookshop. So they don't have to be expensive. You can get a cover for as little as £50, which is really reasonable. And then you need to format your book. So you need either to pay someone to do this, or you need to get software that can do it for you. Now, if you are a Scrivener, if you subscribe to Scrivener already, you can do it in Scrivener. You can do it in Word as well. It's a lot more complicated. I just could not get my head around it. So I actually bought a Wizzy software called Vellum. Now, Vellum only works on an Apple Mac, but you can rent cloud space from a Mac and download the software to that cloud and use it on your PC. So you format your book, and what I love about Vellum is that it does it for you. You just put in the size of how book you want your print book to be, and it does it all for you. And you put in your what you want your chapter breaks to be, for instance. It's so intuitive and so clever, and that's what it's designed for. Everything else, I think, pales a bit in comparison, because you have to tell it what to do, whereas Vellum kind of knows what you want it to do.
That
so
sounds
you
amazing.
format your book. Yeah, it really is. You can do some amazing stuff. So you get your cover and you format your book, and then you upload that stuff to Amazon or whatever site you're actually doing, and then the rest kind of takes care of itself, really. Now, there is a difference between doing an ebook and doing a print book. So Amazon can do both, and they can distribute your books for you as well. So that means that if a bookshop was going to order your books, they could be supplied by Amazon. Bookshops tend to not like ordering from Amazon because they charge more. So a lot of self-published authors and small presses will use the company Ingram Sparks for their print books. They also offer an ebook distribution, but Amazon is so good at that I've never really looked down that angle, because I think Amazon has really done that well. And you get a bigger percentage of Amazon. So your print books, the thing about Ingram, you can choose Ingram, whether they're a distributor or just supplying the book for yourself. So I always choose Ingram as my distributor and not Amazon for my print books. And then bookshops are more likely to buy them in from Ingram Sparks. Now, again, you have to, for your print, you need to buy an ISBN, which is about, I think it's about 40 something pounds, or you can buy a series of 10 for like 100 and something. If you're going to self-publish a lot, that's quite a good thing to do. And you can do that from the Nielsen website, who are the company that are responsible for collating all the data of what's selling and what's not. So you have your ISBN for your print. When you load your ebook, Amazon will give you the ASIN, which is the digital version of that, free. So that's fine. And it will cost you £45 to upload your book into Ingram Sparks. But once it's there, it's there. However, if you want to make changes, it will cost you each time. Amazon will not charge you for changes. You can upload and download as many times as you want. So if you've decided that book 2 in your series is coming out and you want to include the first chapter in the back of your book 1, you can go and make that change and upload it, and they won't charge you, but Ingram will. So Ingram I use for distribution. There is another company called Draft Digital, which I haven't used, although my publisher for the Unadjusteds did do that, and they can distribute both print and ebooks, although they're more known for their ebooks. Some people will do ebooks for Draft Digital, but again, they're going to take a percentage out of that. And then Amazon will take a percentage out of that. So I've never explored that route, but I know it's quite popular and a lot of people do it. And I think there are other things that Draft Digital can offer, but it's not something that I have as much knowledge about. So that's basically it, from book to format to loading. That's probably one of the easiest things. Once you know what you're doing, once you've got the knowledge and what's best to kind of to do. So yeah.
And it sounds like it takes a bit of research, but to me, what's coming through is making sure that at each stage, if you're going to self-publish a book, that you are putting yourself on an even playing field with traditionally published books, because like you said, I think self-published books can vary so much in quality, as I suppose traditionally published books can. But I think self-published ones can have it more so because they might not have had any scrutiny from somebody in the publishing industry. They might have just gone online. So yeah, I think if people are looking into that, that is really important. The idea that you're going to have to spend a little bit of money and a lot of time. So can you give a rough figure? How much would you say it costs if you want to do a really good job and you've self-published a book from beginning to end, if you take into account like the editor's cover, paying to get it on Amazon? Is a sort of a rough ballpark figure?
Okay, so I think if you hired an editor, let's say you spent £700 on your editor, let's say you spent 200 on your cover artist, then you would spend I can't remember what it is, I think it's around 60 for your ISBN, and then 45 for uploading it to Ingram. So you're coming in close to £1,000, I think would be your cheapest option. If you are having professional editing. This is why some people will choose to just rely on critique partners. And I think, as you touched on, the important message with self-publishing is, it's not about what you can and can't afford. It's about making sure that the quality you're putting out represents the best of your ability and will stack up against a traditionally published book, because they have a whole team of people to edit, and you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance and that people will come back for more, because that's what you're trying to do if you're trying to build a career. So yeah, I would say minimum about 1,000. It can be more than that. Yeah,
and I think, as you said, there are ways of saving some money. So for example, my day job is with the company, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, I could think of loads of great designers who would probably, in exchange for my proofreading skills, they might give me a bit of money off a design, or I've got lots of author friends like Marisa, so it might be that, at some point you swap edits and you say, well, actually, I'll edit yours, will you edit mine? So I think there were ways. It sounds like a shocking amount of money, but actually you can whittle that down if you want to. And if you don't, and if you want to pay, you think, I want just professional all the way, then that's an option, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I did that with the Unadjusted, I was still nervous about the rest of the season. And I actually used Hallie, who is my publisher, because she is an editor and she knew the story. So I paid her to edit both book 2 and book 3. With Luna, which is the new one coming out. So I had a developmental edit report from my agent and her reader. And I had people read it, such as yourself, a while ago. So I had so much feedback that I didn't feel I needed to pay anyone else for a professional editor. And then I had my copy editors reading it, and they were going through it and making sure everything was okay as well. So, and that was all for free, actually. That was with a self-published group of authors that we are banded together under the umbrella title Press. And we all help each other, and we've got these copy editors. Amazing. So, as you say, there are ways around paying these huge fees, and then you're really just stuck with your cover. And again, even then, you can do an exchange for something, or find a media student who will do it for free, just with an acknowledgement or something like that. So definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. That's such useful advice. Thank you. Because I think I've always thought it seems really baffling and potentially really expensive, but you've made that kind of sound like something that is actually achievable, and shown us some ways around it. So thank you. So having done both, you've obviously been with some publishers and you've self-published. I think it's really difficult to ask. I'm going to ask you what the pros and cons are of each. And it's a tricky question, because thinking of the publishers I've worked with as a blogger and the publisher that is publishing my books, there's such a variety of experiences, and different authors within the same publisher can have a different experience. Book to book as an author, you might feel differently. So it's really hard to pin down what I can't necessarily say to you which would you absolutely do. Would you always go one or the other? But are there any clear pros and cons of each to you? So what would you say the pros and cons of traditional publishing from your experience?
So from a traditional point of view, and I think it would be a lack of control would be one of the biggest problems. That book does not belong to you anymore once you've signed that contract. And I think when you're with a smaller press, you have a bit more say in what's happening. I know authors who have come to stalemates about the direction of edits and then walked away from their contract because they couldn't rectify that vision. The book changed too much. It wasn't what they had intended. So that's a real possibility. So I think when you go into a traditional deal, you need to be very frank when you have that meeting about your vision and their vision and how that comes together, so that you're on the same page and there's none of that disappointment. But this is one of the things that's difficult with authors, because everyone has a different journey and everyone comes at it differently. This isn't stuff that you know until you're faced with that. And then you're so grateful for your deal that you don't question these things. And it's really important to question, because like not having the right agent fit for you, you might not have the right publisher fit for you, and it might be perfect for somebody else, and they all work differently. It might not be right for you. So that would be my biggest, and I'm a control freak. So that would be my biggest con, I think, would be that losing control of your baby and potentially a direction that you didn't want it to go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm with a small university press, and my experience has been really positive. And I think that they've really listened to what I wanted in terms of marketing. I had ideas because I've been a blogger before. I think I'd seen a lot of how publishing worked, and they listened to that, and they listened to my input on the cover. So I felt like my idea, I think it was between me, my husband and my agent, had the idea to do a VHS cover. And then the designer, just after being told that, came up with this, completely aside.
Brilliant concept.
This cover that I really loved. So it's interesting, because I think I could have signed up with them and not had that same experience, but I was really lucky. And we did have those conversations at the beginning about the direction we both wanted the book to go. And I think because we were on the same page and they were willing to be really flexible with me and listen to my ideas, I think that was where, in this case, traditional publishing worked for me. But I know that it doesn't always. And as you said, I could have been in that same situation of things not going right, and a publisher, matters beyond your control. Sometimes publishers do fold, like any company. So obviously you were in the position then that traditional publishing didn't work out, and then you went self-publishing. So what would you say have been the pros and cons of self-publishing for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's the opposite. It's having all that control. It's definitely, I'd say, and time. Self-publishers, a lot of successful self-publishers will release a series of something like 10 books, and they will be releasing them at 2-month intervals and getting them all out. You won't see that happen in a traditional. I mean, you've got at least a year between books. And there's a particular audience that will devour these Kindle books or Kindle Unlimited, and they expect these books to be available every couple of months. They want to read the next series, and then you can do some amazing deals with box sets and things like that. There's a lot more. And so if you're a productive writer, I mean, I write quite quickly. It's a really good way to get a lot of material out there quickly and then get your read through, which is what will start increasing your reputation. So that's, the flexibility and the quicker timelines of self-publishing are a really great advantage. There are more costs. You don't have a marketing budget. You are your marketing budget. So whatever, you have to, if you're going to do Facebook or Amazon ads, that's on you. If you're going to do social media, you're the one that has to get creative in promoting that. So it becomes more than just about writing. And I know traditional authors also do lots of promotion themselves. It's not an either or way. But unless you are shouting about your book, no one else is going to. So you've got to put the energy into doing that, which can be tiring when you just want to sit down and write or not. And what else do I think?
I was wondering what you think of the perception. Like, do you feel that how did people perceive, if you said this book's traditionally published and this book's self-published, is there any difference in perception of people, or do people now realise that actually self-published books can have the same import as published?
I think there is still a stigma. I think it's lessening, but as long as people are not putting out their best quality, that stigma will always be there. And the other thing that self-publishing has a reputation for is obviously erotica and, alien erotica and things like that. And that is just a corner of self-publishing so there's that public perception of, well, if that's what self-publishing is, then it can't be very good. And the assumption that those books aren't well written is obviously a misnomer as well, because these authors are actually very talented. So the perceptions are shifting, which is great. And I think as more and more people become successful with self-publishing, as they are, it's starting to make that turn. And I know since I've been on TikTok, there have been so many new aspiring authors coming up who have no intention of going the traditional route. It's not even an aspiration. It's just, I'm doing this my way. So in that new generation of writers who are in their 20s, it is fantastic to see that. It's a fresh energy coming into self-publishing.
Well, since you mentioned TikTok at the top, I think I'll move on to that next. So in case you don't know, Marisa has got a TikTok account that's building really, really quickly. And I think, is it under your own name, Marisa, your account? I think
it's Marisa Noëlle and then 12, but you'll find me if you just put in.
Yeah, I think that's how I ended up following you. I just searched for your name. But you seem to have built that really, really quickly, and your videos get a lot of engagement. So I was wondering, for people like me who hasn't done any videos yet, but is on there, can you give any advice of how do you A, get yourself the ball rolling and start doing it, and B, how do you build and keep it going?
You know, like any social media platform, they all have their tricks. And Twitter for me, for instance, it grew over a long period of time and very organically. Instagram, I still have no idea how people get followers on Instagram. It just doesn't work for me. But with TikTok, I was sitting there thinking, you know, I was running some Facebook ads, and I was thinking, do you know what, my audience aren't really on Facebook. Although I do have people my age reading my books at young adult, and I know that there's that crossover. I love The Hunger Games, for instance. I'm always going to read young adult. The majority of them aren't on Facebook. And I was thinking, well, where are they? Okay, they're on TikTok. And I had always dismissed TikTok as something my son watched, and it was all pranks and silly stuff. And then I thought, well, there's got to be a book corner. So I went on and had a look, and there is. So there's BookTok, hashtag book. And it is become my favorite social media platform because you see people. So you can do 15 second, 60 second, or 3-minute videos. 3 minutes is a new thing. And you see the person, you hear their voice, you get to know them so much quicker than on other social media platforms, because they're talking, you're having a conversation with you, and you can reply, and they can reply with a video to a comment or things like that. And so I feel like you establish your network much quicker, and it builds much quicker. And BookTok is starting to explode. Every month it's getting more bloggers, more authors. I mean, it started as a blogging platform where people were coming together to share their love of books, their reviews, do book aesthetics, look at their beautiful bookshelves, you know, stunning things. And then authors have now trickled in. You know, self is a huge percentage of it is self-published authors. There are a couple of big traditional authors on there as well who have really embraced the community, which I love to see as well. And I think it's just one of those things you've got to build into your day. You've got to figure out, I try not to post more than 3 times a day. I actually get better engagement if I only post once, but sometimes I've got too much to say, so I'll do more. And you find out who the other authors are, you connect with them, you follow them. And now I've actually started doing a series of live TikTok interviews with my fellow authors on TikTok, which I then post up to my YouTube channel, so you can get to know some of these amazing indie authors who have these sensational books. I'm reading some at the moment, and they are incredibly talented. And it goes from there. So I'm feeling like this is my place now, and I love being there. Yeah. And I think the thing about TikTok is it's about being genuine. People don't care if you've not got makeup on or a bra, or you're in your pajamas, or if you're crying for whatever reason. They want to see the real you. And that's a really important thing, is to be genuine on BookTok. Yeah.
I think that's the hard thing for me to break through, because I was a bit worried about doing events, and then they all ended up being virtual because my book came out during a pandemic. Yeah. And I ended up really enjoying virtual events, and actually finding that engaging with somebody on a screen is something I enjoyed. So that's why I started my YouTube channel. And I think now I've got to kind of push myself to that next step of, how can I feel like my genuine self? Because I do feel like my genuine self on YouTube. Yeah. I've got to find that, I think, for BookTok. So maybe I need to build up to it. But it's the 3-minute ones I think would work for me. I don't know. I'd need to get my head around the idea of being more succinct. But I think popping on and talking about something that you're working on for 3 minutes could be a great insight into like writing process.
Absolutely. Just little bite-sized chunks. And then once you have 1,000 followers on TikTok, you can go live, and then you can spend longer. And the reason I decided to do my lives with another author, rather than just me on a screen gabbling on about nothing, I think it's a lot more interesting to ask, you know, these authors that we see all over TikTok to actually, okay, what is your journey? What is your book about? You know, let's talk about it. And it just kind of gives it a point. And I think you find your place. I mean, there are people that do funny skits and there are people that do writing tips, and you find your area that works for you. And yeah, just have fun with it. That's the thing. Yeah.
Did you find when you started that you bounced around the different stuff until you found your groove, or did you just get straight into the stuff that you do straight away?
Yeah, I started by doing book aesthetics. So because that's what I'd seen a lot of, and that's what was really popular when I first joined. So it will be, here's a book I think BookTok should read, and then you'll get a series of like 50 photos all flashing at you. So you never focus on one exactly, but you get the impression of the mood of the book. And it's phenomenal. There are some really huge accounts that do this really well. So I started by doing that, and then I started doing more with me talking. And I do write tips, and I do the occasional funny thing if it occurs to me and I can do it. I'm not funny by nature. I'm more about being calm and genuine and giving advice, I think. And yeah, and then you just fall into a pattern of what works. And now I do talk about my books. You know, it's trying to find the balance between self-promotion plus other things. People want to know about your personal life as well. So I did a whole series on, I actually bought a mermaid tail. My husband thought I was nuts, so that I could do my method writing research for my mermaid series. And I went swimming and I took pictures in the ocean and the pool and put them on TikTok, and it got some great engagement. So that they could just see me being silly and making a fool out of myself, you know. And it worked well. So
that's such a good idea. I think showing that little bit of vulnerability and real you, and I don't know, it's sort of, you're doing it partially because you want to promote your books, but also finding that community is so
Absolutely.
valuable, isn't it? And finding people that you enjoy watching. I think that's how I feel about BookTube right now. I found a sort of series of creators who I absolutely love, and some of whom I'm going to actually interview on my channel and talk about horror next month. And so I feel like now I'm sort of becoming part of this community, and there's people who you know, that I would religiously watch their videos. And I ended up meeting Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin in the bookshop he works in, and it was so lovely to meet somebody that I've watched sort of all of his videos and then to meet you in real life. So it's really amazing to kind of make these online connections, and then it can go over into real life as well. So I think now I need to probably make a step. You've motivated me, Marissa. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and do my first BookTok video.
I mean, and what I love about TikTok is that it's a maximum of 3 minutes, sometimes just 15 seconds. So whereas YouTube, I would find quite daunting because someone might be jabbering on for an hour. You know, TikTok, it's all about just scrolling through until something grabs your attention. And then I love the little 15-second videos. It's a really good idea to do a balance of those things.
Yeah, that's
because you want people to be watching it the whole way through. So
my videos tend to be short.
Do it.
Thank you. Unless I'm talking to an author, and I like to go into it a bit more. Because I've got a toddler, I tend to find if I'm recording something myself, if I've got to do it when he's sort of not anyway. So it needs to be quick, record and go. So like one take and done. There isn't a lot of editing.
Well, you know, and I am too, but there are plenty of authors on there who have their toddlers playing in the background. And this is all about the authenticity of being who you are. That is who you are, a mum and a writer.
This is true.
You know?
I mean, I haven't put him on social media, but I am finding that he's sort of sneaking into stuff like on some of I do a lot of like when I'd sign in bookshops, my husband films me, and the amount of times a little toddler head just pops up or he's running off in the background, and I think, you know, this is my life. Like I'll sign a book and then run because there's an escalator, you know. But so you've talked a bit about how you give writing tips on BookTok. So I've just got a couple of questions left, and I wanted to talk to you. Does your writing process look like then? I know I'm envious of how quick a drafter you are. But what does that look like for you then, from idea to
So from idea to fruition, I will start by having an idea. Sometimes these ideas float around for years before I actually do anything about them. And other times I can feel them building quite quickly. And that is when I'll normally get my setting, my character, and my major plot conflict. So I wait until I have those three things. I may make notes on post-it notes, that kind of thing. Once I feel I've got something that's got legs, I start making notes, and I just dump things into a spreadsheet. I have a page for scenes and a page for character. So I'll start with my main character, and then as the as the secondary cast comes to me, I'll just start making notes. It might be someone's got a scar, or someone's got a trauma from the past, whatever that might be. But certain themes will come to me as I think about the plot of the book. This will have to happen to make that happen, and I'll just draw a sentence. I don't worry about order. So that's how I and I'll have maybe 50 lines by the time I actually do anything about it. Then I plot. I am a plotter, and I use the Writers HQ method. They are an amazing pair of ladies who I did all their courses, and they're fantastic. So you start with the 4-point plan. So it's basically your beginning, your middle, and your end. So your beginning, your middle, your ending, and your resolution, what you've learned. And you expand that into 7 points, then 16 points. And once you've got 16 points, it's effectively a point. 1 point equals 2 chapters. I start taking the scenes that I had written down and seeing where they fit into this, because I know where I've got my midpoint's got to be, and I know where I've got that's got to be. So I start putting them into an order. And then I do a little exercise called But Then So Then. And it's like, well, Buffy finds out she is a slayer, so then she meets Giles, but then she realizes she has to do this. And that whole process is a cause and effect. Everything that happens has an effect. And that, I think, is the secret to the tension and pace in my books. Everything keeps moving. There's never really a quiet moment. There's always conflict going to be happening. So once I've got my But Then So Then, I'm ready to go, because I have drilled down into every scene in every book. But it doesn't always stay, as I write, and I think most writers experience this, characters decide to do different things. I don't think I fully know my characters until I've written a first draft. And then there is always things that come out that surprise me. And I think, okay, that's what you actually needed to learn. It wasn't what I thought you needed to learn. And I go back and I edit accordingly to that. But once I've got that first draft down and I've learned who my characters are, then I can start tightening up those themes, the underlying themes. I can write a first draft in 4 to 6 weeks. But I do
Marissa,
think...
can I just take a moment for that? 4 to 6 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I do. I think it's because I plot, and I think I've got the security of knowing exactly what's going to happen. So when I sit down to write for the day, I know what scenes I'm writing, and I just get on with it. I don't worry about quality while I'm writing. I just get the story out, get the bones out. But I've always worked quickly. Even when I was at school, I mean, people would be like, "We can't be finished yet," and I'd be sitting there in exams halfway through done, and it's just who I am. So I can do that. But the editing process does take me a bit longer. One of the things my agent now has impressed upon me is the importance of resting manuscripts. I would want to do my first draft and then dive into my edits and then dive into the next round of edits. And I do leave it to rest. And that's normally when I'll write the first draft of something else. And then I'll go back to the previous book and do a round of edits, read it again, see what's hitting me. It's really important. I've realized the importance of that, because I second guess myself when it comes to editing with big picture edits. I need someone to tell me what to do. But the longer I leave it, the more clearly I see things and what's not working, or I suspect. I still need someone to hold my hand and say, should I do this or shouldn't I? Can you read this for me and tell me?
So do I.
Yeah, so I have, my agent obviously really helps with that. She's really editorial. She's great. Plus some of my beta readers and CPs that, I'm like, this isn't working for me. Can you tell me what you think? And they will, which is fantastic to have, because otherwise I'd be too scared to make major changes. And sometimes you're just not quite sure what's not working, and you just need someone to tell you. And then once they tell you, like, oh yeah, then I can do that. Yeah.
I think as well, you can't impose that reveal or that sort of twist. You can't figure out how somebody's going to react to it, because you know what it is. And I was talking about that to Andrina Cordani, who wrote The Girl Who, and I said to her that her book's really tense and it's got some great twists, and she's like, she doesn't think of it as twisty because she wrote them, so it's not a big reveal to her. Yeah. So I really think that you do need that feedback, because the reading experience for somebody else, you can't have that first time reading experience. Yeah. And like you, I second guess myself. I'm a bit different. I tend to write a bit more slowly, because I think that little voice in my head makes me want to edit and slow down and check things. but this time I had a really short time frame, and I actually did have to do a bit of the kind of Marisa method of pushing on. And it was quite interesting that I wrote myself in some corners because I'd pushed on before I'd properly thought something through, and I'm not a plotter like you, so I'd plotted a bit, but I had to just write and then rewrite and rewrite. But actually it was quite freeing, and I think I wrote the draft in like 3 or 4 months, which for me is astonishingly fast. That's really fast. It did have some notes, so I've sent it to my agent now to do her edits, but with some notes that I know this isn't working, just bear with me while I figure it out. But yeah, I'm really excited.
But sometimes that's when you need to brainstorm with a group, you know, and I just say, I'm stuck on this bit, what could, and that is just one of the best gifts of having writing friends. Is being, you know, you think you're stuck and someone will just say that and you're off, you know, so it's so helpful.
Or that bit of time, even letting somebody read something and then taking 2 months over it, that time when it comes back, they might say, I didn't like that scene, and you might have the answer because you had that bit of reflection. Oh, this is so useful, Marissa. I feel like I'm gonna have to watch this back and take notes on what we've said. It's really helpful. I'm just checking if, I had one more question to ask you. So I know you're often working on lots of things at once. Can you tell us what are you working on right now, and remind us when Luna comes out as well?
Yeah, so Luna comes out December 9th. Pre-orders for the ebook are out at the moment. The paperback will be coming along a bit later, and there will be a hard copy, which I'm really excited about, actually. I'm working on my cover artist for that at the moment, and she's amazing. I love the cover for Luna, it's fantastic. I will actually, a little plug here, be putting out the first 2 chapters in my October newsletter. So if you want to read that before anyone else, please subscribe. So Luna, and what am I working on? So I have been editing my YA horror, which is Camp Nowhere, and it's about 6 teens who get stuck in a time loop with a serial killer. So they have to figure out how they get out of this. So I'm on my final round of edits before that goes to my agent, and really nervous about timing for this because I know young adult horror is really popular, and I know my agent will have notes, and I know it will take her time to read it, and I'm like, I just get it out there. So I have that, and then I actually want to write the film script for the Unadjusted. So I have a friend who's a film producer, and she's very interested in that. But she wants it to be in script format, which will be another learning curve. I've done a bit of that before, but it will be tricky. I need to get the next 2 books of the Mermaid series out. I think that will happen next year. And then there's also a book I wrote a few years ago, which is kind of, it's based on the theme of angels and demons, but the tropes are very inverted. So I've got lots of new ideas for that suddenly, and I'm quite excited about getting back to that. But yeah, now that I know what to do with it. So always lots going on as per usual with me, but that's how I like it.
It is exciting. I think authors always want to know that they've got that next book in them, don't they? And you want it to be a career. You just don't want to write one thing. And it sounds like self-publishing has done that for you and given you the ability to plan out your time and to know that over the next couple of years that you've got lots of books that'll be coming out.
Absolutely.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
So,
thank you so much. So if nothing ever happened in the traditional world, or you know, my middle grade novel's been on sub for a year, is about to go out on a 2nd round. So, you know, while those things take so long, I can ease that fever I get of needing to produce and get things out. So it works well for me. Yeah,
it sounds like it does. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed that. So I think we'll finish there. Thank you everybody for watching. I've been fascinated about self-publishing for ages, so that's really cleared up a lot of things I've wondered. So yeah, I hope it's useful for everybody watching. Thank you to everybody who's continued to support my channel. As always, likes and subscribes are really appreciated. This video I'm recording with Marisa will be going out before all the Halloween stuff starts, but I am doing some exciting things over Halloween I'll be able to tell you more about soon. So thank you very much for watching, and bye everybody. Thank you.